The world didn't see it, but something far more significant than lap times happened during Q3 in Austria. As the broadcast followed the usual front-row theatrics, a quiet transformation was unfolding deep inside the Ferrari garage. It wasn't loud, it wasn't flashy, but it was decisive. Lewis Hamilton, after a razor-sharp lap that landed him fourth, just behind Leclerc and ahead of both Red Bulls, crossed the line. And then, radio silence. No cheers. No adrenaline rush from the pit wall. Just a clean, measured exchange between Hamilton and one man, Riccardo Adami, his race engineer. The conversation was tight, minimal, almost coded. No mention of trophies, no artificial hype. Just two minds finally locking into sync. That moment wasn't about speed. It was about connection. And it may have changed the dynamic within Ferrari entirely. Because in Formula One, behind every world-beating car is an unshakable duo, the driver and the voice in his ear. In Austria, this wasn't about aero packages or tire wear. It was about trust. And that trust revealed itself in the most powerful form possible. Absolute calm. So who is Riccardo Adami? And why is Hamilton choosing to lean on him more than Ferrari's top brass? That's the real story. Adami isn't just a veteran engineer. He's a battle-tested strategist who has weathered Ferrari's most volatile years. Fans remember him for his time alongside Sebastian Vettel, the ever-composed voice during races gone sideways, the quiet tactician who made sense of chaos. But Adami didn't just make it through that storm. He came out sharper. And now he's Hamilton's hidden advantage. When Lewis joined Ferrari, the obvious assumption was that he'd quickly connect with team principal Fred Vasseur, a familiar ally from his junior career and someone with decision-making power. But what unfolded behind closed doors told a different tale. Instead of strategy directors or team execs, Hamilton gravitated toward Adami. During test sessions and briefings, it was Adami who held Hamilton's attention. It was Adami who reworked how telemetry and race data were streamed and absorbed in real time. And in Austria, that behind-the-scenes shift was finally visible. While Vasseur spoke about teamwork, Hamilton and Adami were executing like a precision unit, methodical, disciplined, and unaffected by the noise. Every move in Q3 was calculated to perfection. No last-second traffic, no frantic pit calls, just total control. This wasn't a driver adjusting to a new team. This was a driver modifying the team around his methods, and doing it through a single ally. That poses a sharp question. Is Riccardo Adami still working within Ferrari's hierarchy, or is he quietly rewriting it? On the timing sheets, it looked like Leclerc and Hamilton were fighting the same fight. Two red cars, one mission. But inside the garages, it was a different war. Leclerc's team opted for a traditional, risk-free setup. Stable, safe, predictable. Hamilton's camp? They went bold. Lower rear ride height, riskier balance, smaller margins. It was a high-wire act. And it wasn't just about lap time. It was a message to Ferrari's core leadership. I don't need your comfort zone. I need my edge. Q3 became a silent standoff. Leclerc played it by the book, banked his lap early. Hamilton waited. Adami tracked the grid. He picked the moment. When the grip peaked, they unleashed the attack. One small error at turn 3 was all that separated Hamilton from a front-row start. And the reaction? Leclerc got the usual flood of congratulations. Hamilton got one voice, Adami's. Clear, clinical, without emotion. And the silence that followed? It was no oversight. It was deliberate. Austria wasn't just another qualifying session. It was the first time Ferrari's internal tensions became visible on track. In this sport, silence is rarely empty. It's a signal, a coded pulse that says more than any headline. When Hamilton pulled off that lap and the Ferrari pit wall stayed quiet, it spoke volumes. No "great job" over the radio. No public praise from Vasseur. Just a quiet, calculated debrief from Adami, followed by radio silence. Why? Because this wasn't just about a top 4 result. It was about power dynamics. According to insiders, Hamilton's side of the garage wasn't just working differently. It was operating almost autonomously. While Leclerc's team followed the standard protocols, Adami built a rhythm that was tailored, personal, and completely in sync with Lewis. From tire warm-up patterns to timing gaps, everything was orchestrated independently. Vasseur? He stayed on the periphery, observing, but not engaging. He never even stepped into Hamilton's half of the garage during the final stages of qualifying. That's not just unusual. That's a message. And when Hamilton praised the team in his post-session comments, saying it was the smoothest, most efficient run they'd had, he left something out. He didn't thank the leadership. He didn't compliment Ferrari's structure. Instead, he acknowledged execution. He acknowledged timing. He acknowledged Adami. And that, right there, was the real signal. He credited Adami. He praised timing. He praised structure. But not the structure led by Vasseur. That wasn't coincidence. That was a quiet rebellion. A coded announcement that Ferrari's center of gravity is shifting, not in speeches, but in execution. The question now isn't whether Hamilton can lead Ferrari. It's not about whether Hamilton can lead Ferrari. It's about whether Vasseur can survive his own leadership. P4 on paper might not mean anything dramatic. No podium, no headlines. But for Lewis Hamilton, that 4th place finish was a declaration, not of speed, but of structure. This wasn't about beating Red Bull. This was about sending a message from inside Ferrari. I have what I need, and it's not coming from the top. The last time Hamilton looked this calm after qualifying, it was during his Mercedes peak, back when he and Peter Bonington operated like a neural circuit. In Austria, the same pattern emerged, not in celebration, but in control. Hamilton didn't need to hype the result. He needed to show it was repeatable, sustainable, strategically sound. He called the session world-class, but aimed the compliment squarely at how it was run, not who was running Ferrari. There was no praise for development pace, no flattery toward leadership, only cold respect for operational execution. That's how a new hierarchy speaks, not with fireworks, but with precision. P4 wasn't just a position, it was a proof of concept. That when Ferrari runs through Adami, Hamilton delivers. And when Vasseur stays out of the way, everything works. Charles Leclerc said all the right things. He smiled in the press conference. He praised the team. He welcomed Hamilton's performance. But the way he looked at the timing screens during Q3 told a different story. Leclerc has been the emotional core of Ferrari for years, the golden hope, the loyal soldier through chaos. But in Austria, for the first time, he wasn't the only strategist on track. He wasn't the only one shaping Ferrari's direction. Hamilton's lap, fast, aggressive, just one corner away from the front row, rewrote the balance. Insiders noted that Leclerc requested a reanalysis of both cars' data post-qualifying, not for performance review, but to understand how Hamilton got so close with the newer setup and less time in the car. That's not curiosity. That's concern. And when asked if Hamilton's progress pushes him, Leclerc hesitated, a brief moment of silence before answering. Because the truth is clear. Ferrari isn't just Leclerc's team anymore. And in Austria, that reality started to sink in. In Formula One, shifts like this don't happen through press releases. They happen through lap times. And in Austria, Hamilton sent a psychological warning, not by beating Leclerc, but by nearly doing it on his terms. Every weekend, the media asks the same question: when will Hamilton get his first Ferrari podium? But if you listened closely in Austria, his answer changed. He stopped chasing the podium. He stopped making promises. He went silent and chose action over words. That's classic Hamilton. It's what he did in 2013 when critics questioned his move to Mercedes. Back then, he didn't fight the narrative. He redefined it. Race by race, setup by setup, engineer by engineer. Until he no longer needed to explain, he simply won. Austria felt like that moment again, not because he stood on the podium, but because he laid the first brick of something much bigger. A structure built not around Ferrari's past, but around his own vision of the future. One where Riccardo Adami becomes the new Bonington. One where silence means dominance. While the world looks at lap times, Hamilton looks at systems. And in Austria, he began shaping one that works, not for politics, not for PR, but for results, quietly, methodically, with a team behind him that doesn't wear titles, but delivers truth. This wasn't about finishing fourth. This was about proving he's no longer a guest at Ferrari. He's becoming its architect. Austria wasn't a breakthrough in lap time. It was a shift in control. The engineer who once guided Vettel now synced with Hamilton. The driver once isolated inside Ferrari, now commanding his own micro-empire. And the team principal watching from the margins. This isn't about whether Hamilton finishes P3, P2, or P1 next race. It's about how the power structure inside Ferrari is cracking and rebuilding. Around him, every calm radio call, every silent post-session, every controlled execution from Adami. These are not random improvements. They are signatures of a system being rewritten. Leclerc still smiles. Vasseur still speaks. But the decisions, the timing, the direction, they are no longer centralized. They are moving to where results are, where clarity is, where Hamilton stands, with one hand on the wheel and the other shaping the future. And the media? They'll say it's progress. They'll call it team cohesion. But here, we see the truth. This is how dynasties begin, not with fireworks, but with whispers. If you believe Ferrari's real story isn't told on screen, but in codes, silences, and quiet rebellions, then this is where it gets decoded. Subscribe, stay close, because the next revelation won't come from a press release. It'll come from a radio call they won't translate.